Greetings. Greetings. Welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. Today on Conversation with Tony Mobley, today is May 6th. Yeah. Yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. This episode is 16 of 2026 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. We have over 200 episodes. Our guest today is a person who is very close to this community of Conversation with Tony Mobley. Is Gary B. Jr. And we're going to be talking about why houses of worship need to work harder on their digital presence. That's part of our conversation today. This conversation uses TV broadcast software Mimo Live, and we also use Zoom. You can watch Conversation with Tony Mobley at our website, conversationwithtonymobley.com, as well as you can ask questions on Mukana, which is part of Conversation with Tony Mobley's question queue. This is courtesy of Alex Lindsay of 090, and you can ask questions that can be voted up or down. If you choose not to use Mukana, it is in the YouTube chat. If you choose just to use the YouTube chat, that's fine. You can use the YouTube chat. And we're going to get started right away. Gary B. Jr., thank you so much for coming again, being here with me. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and I thank your wife for sharing you with us tonight. We're going to get right into it. What is new since our last conversation?
Well, made it back in town. Been traveling quite a bit and doing some work with some fun, great organizations. And one of the things that I will say is related to Free Show. There have been some major updates that we'll be talking more about on Friday, but in depth. But right now, one of the things that I can say is that there is a feature built into Free Show now that allows you to navigate OBS. So a lot of folks like to use OBS with Free Show. I think they're match made in heaven. Both of them being free, both of them being open source. Now they are kind of integrated in Free Show with the latest beta, right? So they'll be coming out in a full release probably in the next month or so. But I've been testing out the beta and it works seamlessly and very impressively. So I'm excited about that. Indeed,
You and I
indeed.
know what OBS is, but what is OBS?
That's a great question. So OBS stands for Open Broadcast Systems, I believe. And what it is ultimately it's a software that allows you to connect to YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, whatever streaming software or platform you want to go to. OBS allows you to do that, and it does it completely free. So it allows you to set up your scenes, set up your sources, kind of like what we're doing tonight, where you can have different setups and lower thirds and all those different things show up, and you manage it like a broadcast system and allow it to transition between different scenes. And you can put that on your live stream, and it's all completely free. So you can, people usually pay for services like that, like a StreamYard or Restream or something along those lines. OBS allows you to stream to at least one platform for sure. There might be some plugins you can get for free to allow you to stream to multiples. I just usually do one platform at a time. And I use that to run my live streams for Free Show Friday and in the lab every Monday. So that's what I would say it is. It's a streaming software that's completely free.
And Gary's going to be talking more about that on this Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
You got
And
it.
you'll be able to get more information about that and ask your questions. We have a great time on Fridays at 11 o'clock, so join us.
Indeed.
The
People all
next
over the world
question,
come in.
yes, yes. The next question is what are what are the non-negotiable production standards, audio, visual, and streaming quality, how regardless to the house of worship size?
Non-negotiables. Oh yeah. You said we're gonna get into it. I like that. I like that. Um, and this has to do with specifically live streaming or just media in general. How are we looking at
I'm
that?
I'm
Is
going to
it
say
in-house?
I'm going to say virtual hybrid. Yes, I'm going to say hybrid.
Okay.
A
Okay.
hybrid worship service
Yeah.
What are things that are required? You got to have it
So what I would
in
say when you
person and virtual.
right when you have those both together, so you obviously need to have some type of camera. Now, I'm not a stickler for what kind of camera you have, um, but in that you need to be able to stream the audio as well. And this is where the people most usually get hung up is that they don't usually have a live stream audio mix. And this is going to be difficult to manage if you're a beginner, but at the same time, basically what it means is you want the audio for the folks that are online, whether it's on Zoom, on YouTube, on Facebook, whatever it is, you want them to be able to hear something that it resembles what they would be experiencing in the sanctuary or in the in-house, right? And so what that means is your audio needs to come from a separate mix on your soundboard, which is not a microphone on the camera. In terms of it's not picking up the room sound, it's picking up directly from the soundboard into your live streaming software, whether that's connected to your computer or through a switcher, a video switcher, or something like that. So, audio is going to probably be the number one thing, more so even than video. But if you are going to if you're going to get to the good audio, the next thing would be how do you manage quality video? And like I said, I'm not a stickler with it, but I would say the number one thing with that that's non-negotiable is that the people need to be in focus. And I, it's hard to say because I think some people get away with just fine shooting and streaming in 720p. But in that, the idea is that you want to have some type of I prefer so I got a videography background. This is something you might not know about me, Tony, but I'm actually a filmmaker at heart as well. I love to tell stories and I never lie, right? So I get paid to tell stories, right? And then when I was a kid, I meant telling lies, but I get to tell stories. And one of the things I like about video is that you don't just have a super wide angle. I would say you need to have something that is closer up than just the full sanctuary with every pew, every wall, and every part of the stage being shown. You want to have something that actually frames your speaker, your worship team, or whoever it is. So that means your camera's going to have some kind of zoom, and or you're going to have multiple cameras. I'm not going to say you have to have both, but most churches having multiple camera angles would be simple enough to manage that, and that's where PTZ cameras come in. I'm not a fan of PTZ cameras, but I understand the benefit of them because they do give you a lot of flexibility. But if you have a mirrorless camera or a DSLR camera, you can get a lens that zooms in quite a bit. So good quality audio, video that's in focus, whether it's 720, 1080, that's not that big a deal. It could be a phone. Most phones have great autofocus. So that's probably going to serve you better if you're a beginner in video. Um, and then when it comes to the platform that you're using, this is not necessarily media specific, but I would say if the ministry time, the in house time of worship does not acknowledge the people that are online, you might as well not be online. And that may be harsh, but if you have people in house and you have people online, and all you do is talk to the people in house, and the people online are just a fly on the wall, you could have just not went live. You could have not recorded or shared that as a live feed. Now you can share it as a recording, right, and just post it up as a posted, just a post production or post produced thing that shows, hey, we were live and we are not live, but we had a meeting and this is the meeting. That's fine. But if it's live, it's to me it's non-negotiable to not interact or not engage, to not acknowledge the folks that are actually online. Some churches do a good job of this online, and they'll actually have time of prayer with the folks online after service. They do a good job of looking into the camera and talking to the folks online. And I think a lot of ministers today, in smaller churches especially, that's difficult to do because they're not used to that. And so it's difficult for them to manage or navigate not seeing the people that are there and focusing on them and actually still focusing on those online or having something even marginal to say to those that are online and are listening and tuning in. But if they're there, if they're part of the service, they need to be treated as a part of the service. So I would say those are my top three. I'm gonna stop there.
So
Top three. What do you think?
do you think that they should invest in a person that is actually in the chat for those people that are watching online? Is it
That's a fine way
is
to
it
do
some
it. I think the chat is good, but I would say this. So The chat is helpful if the minister is actually talking to the folks online. It doesn't serve a purpose if the minister is not engaging with the people online, right? Because the people online are going to want to engage. They're going to want to say amen. They're going to want to say things, but the minister doesn't have to know that they're saying those things. So I'm not saying that information that they chat has to be relayed, but if you're going to have somebody online and you can actually manage that and man that computer or have somebody assigned to that computer to engage with them, that's a plus. I know every church won't be able to do that, but at the very least, the person that's teaching or preaching should be able to address them at the very least. Having somebody online to me is like icing on top of the cake in terms of if they're interacting in the chat. I think that would be great. But if the people online can be just addressed, I don't think it's a necessity as much as them being as much as them being addressed. But I love that idea. But it would be icing on the cake. But I don't think it should go have somebody on chat, but the minister never addresses the people online.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's deep. That's deep. You
Yeah.
know, part of the thing that I think about when it comes to this is
Hmm.
that there is a need to to do follow up even with those that are watching virtually, to just to piggyback on what you're saying about if you're not going to engage with them, why are you even doing it? You
Hmm.
know, that's
Hmm.
that's 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 really that's really it in a nutshell in terms of
Yeah. There's no point in
the
doing it
whole purpose.
live. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point in going live if you're not going to interact with, like, that's like saying I'm gonna go to church and I'm not gonna talk to nobody. Why'd you even go? Why you're not gonna shake nobody, saying you're not gonna give nobody a hug, you're not gonna encourage anybody. You may not, in terms of, I'm talking about the leadership, right? The leadership, because they're the ones making the decision to go live. They're the ones encouraging the media team or dictating whether the media team is going to go live or not. Then don't, if you're going to do that and you're going to show up to the fellowship and you're not going to teach, then you don't need to be there and somebody else needs to come in that's going to teach. Same way online. Leave room for somebody else to go online and actually encourage and engage with the folks that actually will talk to them online and not
So you
take
you
up the
shutting it
space.
down.
Yeah,
You
you don't need
shutting
to
it
take up
down.
internet
If
space.
if, if they're not if they're not going to
It's real
engage, you
simple.
saying don't do it.
It's real
Don't do
simple
it.
because, I mean, think about that. I mean, it's a poor experience anywhere you go, right? You can go to a hotel, you can go to a restaurant. If you go up to the restaurant counter, let's say it's a fast food restaurant or a dining. Me and my wife went to somewhere. I'm not going to name the name of the restaurant, but we went there and they set us down, and nobody came to check in on us, and I had to get up and ask and say, "Hey, can we get somebody to come and take our order so we can?" I was basically asking so I can leave. I'm like, I'm ready to go because, yeah, I'm not enjoying this right now, right? And so
Hmm.
it's the same idea. If we're gonna have a live experience, a live experience is you're acknowledged. But if you're not gonna acknowledge me, I don't need to be there.
Okay. Before we go to the next question, let me just say to those people who are listening and watching, this is a great time. We have just having a conversation tonight about
Yeah.
media in the church. And if you have your question, please ask your question in Mukana. It should be in the YouTube chat, or just ask your question in the chat. This is a great opportunity. The logo is showing the QR code. You can just scan it with your phone, and you can ask your question. This is going to be a great conversation tonight. And if you disagree with what we're saying tonight, please ask a question or make a statement. We'd like to have input from you. This is why we're doing this. And so the next question is, how do you balance the sacred atmosphere of worship with the entertainment expectations of a digital audience without compromising the integrity of the message?
How do you balance it? Um, this is a hard one because it relies so much on, from a leadership perspective, right? It relies on that media team leader. It relies on that ministry leader, that church leader, to not go outside of what, not necessarily their comfort zone, because it's okay to go outside your comfort zone, but not go outside of themselves is what I'll best say. to where they're going over the top so much to try to impress with their lighting, or trying to impress with their movement of the camera, or trying to impress with whatever else they're going to try to do that with. It becomes distracting. And that's the challenge. If it becomes distracting, then it's probably unnecessary. And that's even with your presentations, right? We'd like to have motion graphics in the background and things like that. I'm very simplistic in terms of sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to media and design, even like, just when it comes to the way things are arranged and laid out in a presentation, right? My slides, when I do presentations and workshops, I literally only put one word on my slides typically, just one word,
Mm.
and then I talk and I share and I present and I engage people and I have conversation. This is in a real life, face to face conversation, right? If I were doing it online only, I would add more, but I would deal with different type of engagement. And so I say that to say that if you go outside of yourself, you're gonna look awkward. And not necessarily just uncomfortable, but awkward because you're gonna be outside of yourself. And so that's going to be a telltale sign. If you're trying to impress others and you're not trying to be who God invited you to be, right? That calling means an invitation. That's what it translates into. If you go outside of who He's invited you to be, you're being disobedient. You're being outside of of obedience. And so, to me, that's a big deal. I think that that's going to vary based on every ministry. It's going to vary based on every media leader. It's going to vary based on every church leader as well, based on budgets and all those kind of things. Those all play a part. But I would say make sure that you can focus on doing something well and with excellence, meaning that it's not distracting, meaning that you can manage it well, you can maintain it. I think consistency is important, and usually performance wears you out. Performance, it's right now we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs, and these guys are performers. They're athletes. They're performing, every other night, and that wears you out at a high level. And I think that when we shift and get into a performance mode, we're going to easily lead. It's going to easily lead to burnout, and that's not consistent. That's not something you can maintain. And so you want to do what you can maintain, and that may be going slower rather than trying to jump and change 15 different things all at the same time overnight. It may be that you phase things in over a series of quarters of the year, right? You might say, okay, we're going to add one camera right now, and then in 2 or 3 months, we're going to add another camera, or we're going to add one or two screens in the front, and then we'll add some lights in or whatever it is. But you want to build it out in a way that's healthy, that you can maintain. That's a big deal. No matter how big or small your church is, if you go out and your church has a budget to buy a $5,000 camera and you spend $30,000 on that camera, that's not sustainable, right? You just broke the budget. Scale it down. If you're a church and your budget is to spend $500 on the camera and you spend 1,000, you've just gone outside of yourself. You've gone outside of your budget to maintain and even make the most of that type of equipment. And you want to be mindful of that. That's how I look at it, is that you want to be mindful and steward well what you have been given. But that question, it can go so many different ways. So to me, the idea of compromise is something that only God knows, right? The Bible talks about this. I've been reading in Samuel, First Samuel, talks about when Samuel went to go and anoint David. He reminded Samuel that man looks at the outward, but God looks at the heart. And he was reminding us that we can look at. I don't know if you've been a part of conversations. You may have. I know I've been a part of conversations with actual church leaders, and they can look at a certain leader that has this audience or has this platform or has this big stage and this big church or whatever it is, and they can say, "Oh, they don't preach as good as I do. I can preach better than they do," or whatever it may be. But I don't think it's a matter of what we can see. I believe this boils down to a matter of the heart. And so, as much as we can or can't see, doesn't really dictate whether or not they're going to get a well done from the king. And that's what matters the most to me. So I can have all the lights in the world. I can have the most expensive cameras and the best live stream and all these different things, but my heart was in the wrong place. That's what God is going to judge. And that matters the most to me. I don't really care what the performance looks like. We can sit there and we can be on our face and praying all day. And I live stream and I'm there in the media team and I can say, well, somebody needs to sing or somebody needs to do this or, we need to talk or whatever it is. But the reality has to do more with what pleases God, not necessarily what pleases us. And that's why I say it's going to be such a wide range. There's such a wide range of what that looks like because everybody's means are different. Everybody's in a different position. Their platform is different. So there's different expectations for everybody. and they have to steward that. We have to be responsible for what God has entrusted to us. For me right now, I'm using a mirrorless camera, right? You got a different camera that you're using. I don't sit here and say, well, since I don't have the kind of camera that Tony got, then I probably shouldn't be doing this. No, I got to work with what I got just as much as you got to work with what you got. And I think if ministry focuses on making the most of what they have, it won't be as much room for the hearts to deviate, because that's where the deviation will come. That's where the compromise will come. It starts at the heart. It doesn't start with the equipment or the technology or the presentation. Somebody's heart was deviated before they even set that up. And that's what we have to manage and do our best before God to say, okay, we do want to do this.
I want to push
Go
back
ahead.
just a little bit on
Talk to
what
me.
you said. So, how do you get around someone using everything that you've said
hmm
to be in the framework of good enough? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why I'm
In
saying what
terms
I'm
of,
saying?
I hear
So,
you saying,
based on
how do
what,
we make sure we don't settle? Is that what you're saying?
yes, yes,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everything that you just said, someone could say, that's good enough. Particularly
Yeah.
that statement about using what you got.
Yeah, yeah.
So I look at you use what you got as a way of saying this is what
Don't
we
get better.
have.
Uh-huh.
Don't get better. Just use what you got.
Yeah.
And and
Now,
and and this is the issue for me.
hmm
When you have been blessed with resources
hmm
to do better, but you don't because you're saying this is good enough.
well, that's my point right there, is that if you have the resources, then that's what you have, and you need to make the most of it. That's where I'm coming from. When you said that, if you have the resources to do better, then you have the resources. You need to work with the resources you have to do better. Does that make sense? So, for example, going back, like I said, if I'm in the market looking for a camera, and my budget says I need to get nothing more than $1,000 camera, well, I need to do some research and find the best $1,000 camera I can find that's going to meet the needs of what my ministry needs, and I need to be faithful to do that, as opposed to saying, well, if I only got $1,000, I shouldn't invest in upgrade my camera because I want to get a $5,000 camera. That's fine that you want a $5,000 camera. I'm saying if you have $1,000, get the best $1,000 camera. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit different than
I
settling for what you
understand.
have, as much
Yeah,
as
I understand
make the
what you're
most of
saying.
what you have. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that
People use it as a
there's
license.
a potential for people to settle.
hmm
And based on them saying, they could say, well, because God knows my heart, God knows my heart. And because God knows my heart, this is good enough because God knows my heart. But the fact of
hmm
the matter is, the thing that's wrestling around in my head is, are you giving God your best? That's always what goes before me when
Oh,
I'm
I
when
hear
I'm
you.
when I'm dealing with situations.
hmm
Is this the best that I can do? Is this the best that I can do because how I revere God? Would God be proud of what I'm doing because he knows my heart,
hmm Well,
or would he
let's talk
not?
about that. Let's talk about
Okay.
that. When you said that, it reminded me of the story in the Bible in Matthew 25. And it talks about these three servants. They had the same master. It says that this master, he gave to each of them according to their ability, in one version. I'm not sure what version it is, but it says he gave to them according to
Mhm.
their ability. And the master expected them to make the most of what they had with the abilities that they had. And so when you said that people use he knows my heart as a cop out, when I say he knows your heart or he's looking at your heart, to me, that's the most fearful thing that I could ever consider, because he literally knows my heart. He knows if I'm
Mm.
trying to just be lazy. He knows if I'm just settling. He knows when I'm not giving 100%. He knows when I'm choosing
Or
convenience
afraid.
Yeah, when I'm fearful and I make my decision based purely and solely out of fear and I completely disobey what he wants and nobody else knows it because I've shaded it under this auspice of, well, we're just gonna stay humble or whatever you want to use it for. People, whatever you want to make up in there. I'm not that concerned about the excuse, but like you said, fear is a driving force. He knows that. And that's terrifying because you can't hide it from him. You can hide it from other
Mm,
people, right? Other people might not know, but God knows your heart. But going back to that story, there were three servants. Two of them made the most of what they had. And what they did is they returned to their master something more than what he gave them, but it was all according to their ability. Each of them had 100% return. They gave and came back with more than what they were given. And the last
mm,
servant didn't. The last servant didn't make a return on anything. And the master's response was not, why didn't you do like these guys did? Well, he knew that guy or that servant, guy or girl, whoever it was didn't have the same ability as those other guys, other servants. But he gave them enough according to their ability to be able to do exactly what they did, which is make the most of it. You could at least get 100% return. He said, well, why don't you just at least put it in the bank and get a marginal return? Get a 2% return on it, get something.
mm.
But out of fear, they said, I knew you to be a hard master and I was afraid, so I hid it. And that's a terrifying thing because in doing that, there was judgment of what the heart was behind it. Not just for the action, but the heart behind it was wicked before that master. That's what he called it. He called that a wicked situation and lazy, right? The action was lazy, but he looked at the heart and said it's wicked. And so for me, when I think about that, I think about literally just that story is that making the most of it means literally doing what I think you're saying, which is produce, multiply, increase, make it better than when you left it, right? And you have the ability to do something with it because he gave it to you. He gave you that ministry. He gave you that voice, or he gave you that understanding, and he expects you to do something with it that's going to benefit his kingdom. And I believe that that's the heart behind. Um, if that's the heart behind the ministry team of the leadership and also of the media team, I believe that there's going to be some synergy there to where there's not going to be that the room for compromise not being addressed, right? So when you talk
Mm.
about the
Okay.
entertainment versus the spirit of
Sacred.
God, yeah, the
Yeah.
sacred, there's this understanding that there should be some checks and balances where if I'm the media person and I want to have, strobe lights and I want to have uh, glitter falling out the sky and confetti and this and that because I think it'll make a great picture, somebody needs to hold me in check and say that don't have nothing to do with the message. That has nothing to
Mm.
do with the gospel being made clear to anybody. So let's scale that back and let's just make sure the lighting is good so that the message can be heard. Let's make sure the audio is decent and clear for everybody in house and everybody online, right? Let's make sure we invest in properly in all those things, and we'll continue to progress and get better. And we'll have a time to produce something that's higher quality with that includes maybe a production that involves those special effects or whatever it is you want to do. But we don't want it to be distracting just because we can do it, right? And that's where I think for me the fine line is that the sacred and the entertainment can't be. You don't want to compromise by distracting from either one of them, right? Because if we're saying, hey, this is a holy time, and you come in and it's a disco ball in the middle of the room, that's distracting from what people consider to be a sacred
Absolutely.
situation, right? That wasn't in the
Absolutely.
temple. I'm not saying we got to go back to the temple days, but I'm saying there was a holiness, a sobriety about it. But at the same time, we can't just be there in the dark and no lights on because we don't want to have no electricity because that's not holy. It's like, no, you need to have some lights and a camera, and if you want to project it and share this with the world. And so there's that balance I think that comes with both of those coming together with a health that says, hey, we both have a heart to say we're going to serve the kingdom well. And there's got to be some push and pull. There's got to be some honesty to say, no, we're not doing that. Or I think we can do better, right? That's an honest conversation to have and say, no, I think we could have done better with our sound. I don't like that, right? And in love, let's figure out a way to make it better and make the investments to improve it as opposed to just acting like it's good enough, like you said, right? That's where I think for me the challenge is that a lot of ministries settle and they don't challenge each other to do better. They just say, "Oh, that was powerful and wonderful." It's like, well, that's good that it was powerful and wonderful. How can we make it better? That's the conversation for me: is what can I do to be better, as well as it was, as great as you preached, Pastor Tony. If you came to me for feedback, I'm gonna tell you that it was awesome, it was excellent, and then I would ask a question about what do you think about doing this next time, right? And the
Mm,
only thing I'm asking it for is so you can make it better.
right. Thank you, Gary, for that. And listen, audience, please ask your questions. We have a question from Ear to Hear Publishing.
Okay.
How, how can a ministry align its media slash presentation with its vision, mission, and values?
Ooh, it'll here getting deep. How can they align the ministry, media presentation? So I think the number one answer to that, the simple answer of it, for me at least, like the Gary version, is consistency, being consistent. And there's a number of different ways you can hold yourself accountable to be consistent. One of those ways is have central themes of colors, like a consistent color palette. Have it'd be nice to have some type of logo, in terms of just some type of recognition or brand recognition so people can easily identify. That's what I look at brand recognition as something that should bring people some level of um, understanding, right? Maybe not peace, because maybe that brand is ruckus and exciting or whatever it is, and it makes people hype, but some type of brand recognition so people know what to expect is what I'm saying. And that's where that consistency comes in. And so that may look like having consistent slides or having a consistent timer or just starting on time. That's a big deal, right? But those things to me have to be done consistently. So if you're going to have a clear vision, if you're going to share that vision publicly, make sure that your presentation aligns with that vision and not totally different. If you say, we got a vision to evangelize and serve people in the kingdom in this city, and the only thing that you're doing in your ministry is looking for places that you can buy chickens and find some, I don't know, something crazy, just something totally off the vision path, is inconsistent. And so you want to make sure that you're consistent, and that literally can come down to a simple consistent presentation of branding and themes and slides and colors and all those different things. But even more so, consistency between what you say and what you do is going to be the most important part, because that's where the values are expressed in what you do,
I
compared to what
want
you
you. I
say.
want you to say that last part again. What you say and what you do.
There has to be consistency, right? And so I started out talking about the color schemes and the logo and all that stuff being consistent, but it's not enough to just have people say it's on point, to have that whole presentation on point. We got the best presentation program and we got the best computers to do it, but the ministry leadership or the worship team or the whoever, what they're doing is inconsistent with what the ministry is saying that they stand for, right? That's where those values come in. And so I would say in a simple word, to have those things aligned best is going to be consistent. If you always have, or if the ministry's focus is to have, it's a place of praise, it's a house of worship, then focus on making sure that when people show up, they experience a level of praise and a level of worship that is indicative of what you're saying your ministry stands for. If your ministry is a teaching ministry, I'm not going to come and expecting a whole lot of powerful praise and worship. I'm going to expect powerful teaching, powerful understanding coming forth, powerful revelation maybe, and you have to be consistent with that. And that's what I would say is going to be the most important thing. It's just some level of consistency
So
across the board.
the gift that the ministry has been given should be front and center, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And be clear. It needs to be clear that this is the gift that we are to the body, right? The Bible says that we all have a function to play in the body, right? Every joint supplies, right? My knee doesn't do the same thing that my eyebrow does, but they both are valuable. They don't need to try to be each other, but they need to be functioning fully what they're supposed to be. And so, if we're promoting ourselves or expressing that this is what we're going to offer or what we're going to be delivering or what we're going to be presenting, be consistent with it. And it needs to be an expression of what you actually have to give, right? So, yeah, I agree completely.
If there is only praise and no mission, what do you do with that?
If there's only praise and no mission, um, and you're
I
saying
know
praise and no mission in
we're
terms of not
talking
being
about
fully expressed.
media ministry, but
Yeah.
it just occurred to me as you were talking, that there are some houses of worship that they are in the celebration of God, and
Yeah.
and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But
Yeah.
what I guess the question I'm asking you, and I'm just really asking for your opinion
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
on if it's just about the praise and there is no mission, what do we do with that? Is that okay?
Well, if you say it's just about the praise, and my assumption or my guess is that praise is the mission, right? In the sense that that's their primary focus and that's what they're presenting and that's what they're delivering. That's the part they play in the body of Christ. Then they need to throw the best praise parties than any other church in known demand, right? Like they should be better than any other place or atmosphere where people go to praise. Like so, to me, when I think about praise, I don't think of it in a four wall sense. I think of it as, I like NFL football, and if you want to go and see a praise party, you should go to an NFL football game or just go to somebody's house that enjoys football, and you're gonna see them shouting, you're gonna see them dancing, you're gonna see them jumping, you're gonna see them raising the roof and excited about what they're enjoying and participating in. And I believe when you say praise, that's what I would expect from a house that is designated themselves as praise focused and praise mission. They should compete with any NFL stadium any day of the week. They should compete with that if that's their focus, because that's their call. That's what they're invited to do, or that's what they claim they're invited to do. Do it with all your heart. Do it all your heart. As unto the Lord, though, not as unto your favorite team. Right? That's the hard part. Like it's like we praise well. Everybody praises well. It doesn't matter. Are you going to do it as unto the Lord, or are you just doing it because that's your favorite player, right? That's your favorite singer or whatever it is. Go to a concert. They praise really well at concerts. The crowds and all this, they do little waves, they do all that stuff. They shout and they hold their phones up and they scream and they shout and they shake and they get excited. All those different things that we might consider a good praise time at a church. And so the question is, if that's your focus and that's your mission, I love that. I think that's excellent. It serves a place. I don't think that that's a healthy diet in terms of spiritual diet. I think it's something that is a part of a fellowship. I don't think it's the priority or the focus of a full fellowship. I think it's just a part.
One of the things that occurred to me is that if the praise
Hmm.
is so powerful that it pushes you to do the mission,
Hmm.
then I think that's fantastic. And and,
And
and
there's a part
maybe
for that.
maybe we're agreeing. We're just saying it differently.
I
Um,
think so.
I just think that it's important that the praise produce some results, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I feel the
You know,
same way
whether
about prayer and
whether
anything else
whether
that
or
we do.
not it's just bringing somebody closer to a closer
Mhm.
relationship with God,
Absolutely.
or it pushes them. And this is my example. And
Okay.
I shared it. I don't know if I ever shared it on Conversation with Tony Mobley, but I know that I have shared it in a few of my sermons.
Hmm.
And so my parents, um, toward the end of their life, they were a part of a fellowship, and they worked, as best they could in that fellowship.
Hmm.
But for them, it wasn't enough that they were just going to church every Sunday. And then at some point, my mother got to the point where she couldn't go to church, but
Right.
my
Right.
father would still go to church, right?
Okay.
So what my mother did was she started this combined Christian. Well, she had been a part of. She had started this. I grew up in New Jersey. She started this in New Jersey, and then they eventually went to Florida, and then ended up here in metropolitan Atlanta, right?
Wow.
And so
Wow.
this combined Christian workers was doing this thing. We would go on trips and go different places as a
Okay.
fellowship, as part of a church. But
Okay.
these were people who were at different churches that would work together, come together, do different things, bus rides, a lot of different activities, a lot of
Okay.
exposure, right? And so, well, they got to the point where my mother in particular was not able to move around and do anything, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
she thought it was important to create this combined Christian workers broadcast, right?
Okay.
And she, I would have to go over to my parents' house, and they got computers. They got a computer. They got a dual tape deck and a
Hmm.
dual CD
Oh,
six
see, this
player
ain't new to
CD
you. This is in
ROM.
your blood. This is in your blood doing this.
So they were doing this, right? And so there's
Yeah.
7 of us children, right?
Okay.
And so I was doing what they asked me to do because I'm their child. I
Hmm.
didn't agree with it. I thought they could use their money, their Social Security and pension in other ways, right?
Okay. Okay.
But what they decided was they thought that it was important for them to do this. They did a broadcast, a radio. They made tapes
Hmm.
of encouraging words that they actually paid me and my siblings to take it to the radio station. So we'd play on Saturday afternoons.
Hmm.
They had
Hmm.
these newsletters that they created that had Christian puzzles, crossword puzzles, and
Mm.
encouraging words, and all of this stuff they were doing, right? And
Wow.
so none of us, the children, were like,
Hmm.
why are you spending your money on a computer and all of this and all this stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
Converted the garage into their
A studio
publishing
or
studio,
publishing,
right?
or was it a publishing house where they were printing papers and all that stuff in there too?
Well, they were doing
The
generating a
handouts.
newsletter. They were
Wow.
generating a full-fledged newsletter. They would have a theme that they would talk about, lift up scriptures,
Hmm.
puzzles, games, all kinds of things that they were doing, right? They were doing this,
Wow.
right? And this is the the end of the 90s, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like, I don't understand. And so, Gary, I'm gonna be honest with you. It took me these years, these last
Hmm.
10 years of my life, me going through
Wow.
the things that I've gone through to
Uh-huh.
understand why they thought that they needed to do the extra.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And I'm
Uh,
only saying this is because don't wait like I did
mm,
to want to do the extra towards the end of your life.
mm.
Do the extra for God now. Do it now. Don't
I
wait.
love it.
Don't wait.
Now, and I would pose it even a little bit different to say, and I do this all the time, so I'm not trying to combat what you said, but I wouldn't even call it extra. It's literally they're doing it as unto the Lord. They're literally doing everything they did as unto the Lord. And I, you read the Bible probably just as much as I do, but when I read the Bible, He ain't low. He ain't low or lesser. He's what we would consider to be extra. Like he is higher than he is higher than high, and he is the most abundant and exalted above all. And so when we do our work, it should be high and it should be reflective of him. It should be excellent, like you said. So when I hear you talk about that, I think about that in terms of just considering their reward in heaven and saying, wow, they
Mm.
made it a focus and an attention, like you said, to say, I'm going to give everything I have towards what I believe I can do. Right. This is what I think they had the resources to do it. So they did it. And you're saying, hey, as a kid or a young man, a young person looking at them and saying, why are we doing all this? Like and nowadays they say you're doing the most. It's like, why are you doing the most right now with all that? We need to be doing this, or we could get this, or we could do that. And that's admirable. I love to hear that in terms of just that reward in heaven to say, Lord, this is what we did with what you gave us. That's the thing. It's like when you think about those servants that we talked about in Matthew 25, your parents are going to be able to say, Lord, you gave us a garage and we turned it into a manufacturing plant. We turned it into a publishing house. We turned it into a broadcast studio. But that's what we had. We had a garage and we made it work. That to me is what he rewards. He rewards those that effort, like you said, the extra. It was all they had, and they made the most of it. And I believe God loves that, and so I'm glad that you shared that story, man. That's really cool, really cool.
Yeah, man. I'm thankful for them because that just that's actually encouraging me to push a little harder and be um more engaged in actually sharing God's word and letting people know that He is worthy of service. I think,
Yeah.
you know, and when you think about it, even that as fact that that was a sacrifice for them because
Hmm.
they were taking their own money, they weren't getting any
Yeah.
donations or anything like
Yeah.
that. They're taking their own money and doing that, right?
Yep.
But then you think about those first century Christians
Exactly.
who were being persecuted. You know, how the apostles, all but one, were tortured and killed, and how we sometimes struggle with Sunday morning and Wednesday, Thursday Bible study. You know, it's
Hmm.
this is not to say that, you know, I'm not putting down people who are not able to do more than what they can. But when you
Right.
can do more, do more.
Right.
That's all I'm
Right.
saying. When you can do more, do more. So
Absolutely.
we're getting down to the end, and I'm looking at the question from Ear to Hear Publishing,
Hmm.
and I don't know if we got out of all of it that we needed to get out of that question, but I'm just curious. Is Ear to Hear Publishing someone you know?
Absolutely. I do know who this is. This is a wonderful, lovely, lovely lady. That's my wife and her business. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking your question tonight.
You didn't get all of it
So,
out of it all you got all that we could get out of it, Tony. You are hilarious.
well, we're down to the end, and but before we end, we want to lift up first our guest tonight. Um, are you available for a consultation for people who need additional support?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can go to my website, GaryBJr.com, and sign up for a 30-minute consultation. They can sign up for an hour, however long they want to. But absolutely, you can go there and sign up for any time that's available that works for your schedule. And it works around my schedule, obviously, already. So that's something that's already built into it. But in those consultations, focus on helping you further your media presentation using Free Show, using OBS primarily in terms of those tools, because that's what I'm comfortable with saying. I can give you expert advice in those areas. I'm also comfortable helping people understand how to navigate their cameras. I'm not going to say that with PTZ cameras. Like I said, I'm not a fan of them, but I come from a background with actually doing film production, so I'm more of a fan of cameras that actually you can change the lens and do all that kind of stuff. But my goal is to help people just level up in their ability to use media in their house of worship, or in their in this situation, to me, in terms of their podcast or their whatever media they want to express. If they're going to do it for the glory of God, I think that this is something that they definitely should sign up for, and come to a consultation. I also, for those who have Free Show, I was telling you about this earlier, is that I have a Sunday launch kit that helps folks get started with Free Show fast. If you've never used Free Show and you want to start using it, it's a free software that allows you to create excellent presentations. I've got some tools and resources on my website at just look for media systems, and you'll find three different levels of media systems that you can use to help improve your media and potentially save you money in the long run. To say, hey, we're not going to keep paying for this service or that product or that software. We're going to use Free Show and implement this at a high level. I've got something for every level of church to start using Free Show. And those consultations definitely would be helpful if you want to do that to help you jumpstart that experience. We can definitely do that as well.
If you want to know more about Free Show, please tune in to Gary's broadcast on YouTube on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hmm.
And also, we want to lift up another brother who's a part of this conversation, AJ, the
Hmm.
CEO, who
Come on.
a person that Gary and I both follow. He is a person who does installation of things that churches need. He is able to actually do help you with the hybrid if you're doing hybrid worship or you're just doing in person. He comes and he does all the wiring and the internet installation. And we didn't even
Yes,
talk about how important it is to have an internet connection in the house of worship. Uh,
absolutely,
things
absolutely.
being connected by the Ethernet
Yeah, hardwire,
connection and how that drive hardware hard hardware
wired.
everything
Yeah,
connected by wires and not just
yeah,
using Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is you're setting yourself up if you're only using Wi-Fi. You're setting yourself up for a lot of different issues to come up and be present in your
for sure.
worship experience. And um, we watched. I'm gonna say this, and we'll cut it short. Uh, in one of our Bible studies at Miracle Bible Way Church. We watched a video, and the person who was doing a major installation at a house of worship,
Is this with
and
AJ?
they were
With AJ,
no,
the
this
CEO?
wasn't AJ. This was someone else.
Oh,
And
okay,
so we
okay.
were watching this video, and it was major installation, and everything had cabling, and everything was done. It just couldn't. There was one thing that wasn't working. One thing was working, and so they tracked it down. They finally figured out what it was, and then the person said, uh, "Don't always blame everything on the devil. Everything all the time it ain't the devil." And so I never forgot that,
For
and
sure.
I think that we as followers ought to think that we need to check our stuff. We need to make sure that we restart our devices and make sure that we
Hmm.
clean our camera lenses, and we make sure that when possible that we definitely wire everything so that it works smoothly.
Absolutely.
um, and so we just want to get to what's next for you.
What's next for me? I got some a workshop coming up at the end of this month. In May, it's going to be in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's another worship and technology conference, and so I'll be doing a presentation there for Free Show slash A Play Pro. I don't know if you know this or not, but Free Show actually partnered with a company to allow them to build out a version of Free Show that integrates some curriculum with it called A Play Pro. And so they partner with Amazing Life Foundation, and I work with them heavily throughout the week to empower as many churches as possible to use this software. And so I'll be doing a workshop there for with that in mind. And so I can't wait to do that. Um, I'll be looking forward to doing some more tutorials on Free Show and on YouTube and connecting with more people. And there's a lot of things in store. I told you earlier, planning to write a few books. That's something that's going to be coming up. That's more of a long term, by the end of the year goal. But I can't wait. I can't wait for what the Lord has in store. But at the same time, I'm going to choose to walk in faith. And so for me, that means that I'm going to choose to take the risk that comes with being uncomfortable and not being so afraid that it paralyzes me. So that's what I would say
Yeah,
is next. That's what's next.
yeah. And I'm a little frustrated with myself tonight, Gary, because I really wanted to talk about how you first got started working in church media when you were a very young person. You shared that with me, and we didn't get to that tonight. So I'm
Yeah, but so you
already
told me you had like four questions. We got through like one and a half.
so listen, we got to get you back soon. I don't
All
know. I
right,
will have
all
to
right.
check your schedule when we get off the air and see
Yeah.
when you can come back. Because there were a couple of questions that I had put in that we didn't get to, and
All right,
so
all right.
I'm gonna make sure I save them so that we can have another conversation. So we're down to the last
I'll take
question.
it.
You're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
Oh, we. I want the world to know that there are people in the body of Christ who want to see the kingdom of God in the earth. And I believe that in this hour, in this day and age, I believe that the more you can understand and integrate um, with media and understanding how to use that for God's glory, the better off we're going to be. Because I believe that we have to. use media. We have to use technology to accomplish the mission of the kingdom. I believe that if we look close enough in the scriptures, we'll find that technology and media were intertangled throughout. I believe God used media. Media just literally means the thing in the middle, right, between the messenger and the hearer. If you look at Moses in the burning bush, that burning bush was the media. God spoke through that, and Moses heard through that. And there's this understanding that there's something in the middle, and if that's going to be something that God has invited you to do, that's a very important role. And so I believe that God has invited me to be a part of that, to serve in media and play that important role to kind of be in between. And so integrity is needed, humility is needed, and understanding more than anything is needed as well, to navigate that with excellence. So that's what I would say.
And I just want to say, those people who are afraid of technology, understand something. The Bible is only 500 years old in its written form. Only 500 years old. That's a technology.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid of it. We're going to thank you so much for being here today on Conversation with Tony Mobley. This conversation is produced by Clylock Lopez Waterman. Our current team is Laura Thompson, Zachary Sorensen, Mickey McAture. We want to say thank you, sir. Thank you, team. Thank you, Mimo Live. And thank you, Zoom, for making this broadcast possible. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new episodes and great conversations on Conversation with Tony Mobley. When you have time, please go back and take a look at our over 200 conversations on Conversation with Tony Mobley on our website as well as YouTube. We think you will find something that is helpful to you. Conversation with Tony Mobley. I want to thank Gary B. Jr. and Mrs. Gary B. Jr. for sharing him with us tonight. We want to thank Gary for being who he is and for doing the work that he does. Next week on Conversation with Tony Mobley, we're going to have an education panel for the end of the school year. Yes, we're going to have an education panel. We're going to talk about end of the school year. And we're also going to talk about things that parents and educators might need to be focusing on this coming summer break. Please feel free to support Conversation with Tony Mobley by volunteering your time or donating. You can donate. Conversation with Tony Mobley needs your donations to keep running. We ask that you please like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. We want to keep getting better. Thank you so much. Take care. See you soon. Good night.